Hey, so I want to make this quick video. It's a response to Tool Time, and I really will try and keep this one quick. I know it's been a long time since that video was made. It was the one on science fiction and atheism. You asked, what was it again? Yes, what science fiction shaped us as skeptics? And I wasn't, like, I liked the video. It was quite good that you read that article. I liked that article. It was good. From the section from the book that you had, and you know, you raised points about Torchwood and Star Trek and all that kind of stuff. But funnily enough, I was watching videos about the conundrum of gay marriage in America, and somehow in my head I connected the two things: the thoughts that your video had inspired about pop culture and media, as far as I was concerned, and the way that this thing is playing out with Republicans and Obama's statement of "I support it." So really this is just probably entirely not connected, but I'm gonna put his response anyway because it's your video that inspired this in the first place. Alright, so yeah, you ask, right, what science fiction shaped us as skeptics, and I think that's the wrong question to ask, because you don't watch the science fiction initially because, you know, someone presents it to you. I know there was a video response from the guy Brandon, numbers on either side of his username, can't remember what they were, and he said that someone had basically given him the stuff to listen to. And I know in some cases that's kids, that's how you spread ideas, is by giving these kids these things, but like, a kid's either going to be given it by their parent, so that parent already holds those values, if you understand what I mean, or it's going to be the other way, in which case the kid is initiating that they like something, so they already have those ideals. And I really want to talk about it in terms of ideals and not ideals. You might see what I mean, you might not, I might just be talking complete crap, but go with me here, because I'm about to connect it to how, you know, there's a difference in the way that culture moves on from one culture to the next one, is basically what I want to present. So yeah, I think it was a good thing you brought up Torchwood and Star Trek, because they're really good examples of a society moving on from one idea to the next. And I wouldn't say that they're the only sparkers. Like, Star Trek wasn't the only spark for you know, socialism to become an accepted idea. Communism isn't really accepted in America yet. It probably won't ever be. Certainly in Britain we accept it as an idea, but not one we're going to use. So it's not like taboo to call something communist, but you know, it's probably not something we'd use because it's just dull and ineffective at best. But socialism isn't something we particularly like, but tends to crop up in our politics instead. So, you know, every society has the left and right side. But what I wanted to say was that what I actually think happens is that it's not that science fiction shapes you. Little parts of it that are not to do with the original science fiction inspire you. And that's what I want to mention about Torchwood. His character, his strong, likeable character, pansexual. And some people would think that's like challenging the misconceptions of society. Not so much anymore. Certainly, I know that was quite a successful series in Britain, and sexuality is a perfectly accepted thing here. You know, gay marriage was allowed a long time ago, and you know, kind of just waiting for America to catch up. So it's not so strange to us, but I think I would think that we feel it's nice to have a diversity of different characters, and not as in like what characteristics they hold, but from what sectors of society they come from, if you like, because it is a different way of thinking within the gay community. Certainly, because they're definitely more promiscuous first before they're monogamous, whereas in heterosexual society it's more you're monogamous first, and then if you really wanted to assert being promiscuous, you'd have to actually state it to whatever partners you were with. So it's kind of, that's the conceptions of their society. That's not really important to what I'm discussing. I don't know why I went on that kind of little tangent there. I'd say to you, don't think on what you feel has inspired you when I'm doing this. Think of only the psychology that's involved, because you talked about scriptures and stuff and how they connect to the stories, and that's something I picked up on and thought, well, look, this is a good example of what I mean. So I'll explain that. The guy Brandon talked about technology and the fact that he thought it was a good thing. I question him as to whether he thinks it's a good thing because of the science fiction, or because he's used simpler technologies in his everyday life, forever, for his whole lifetime. Even simple things, your car, your mobile. I mean, heck, when you were probably young, when I was young, a phone with a cord on it, that's still technology. And the acceptance of technology happened because how useful it was. So space and the idea of that kind of thing and going out into space, that's a concept because we have to think something's useful. We already know technology is useful, we already know the technology of spacecraft is useful, but whether going into space is a good idea is something that is slowly becoming less of an argument and more of an acceptance that we can mine stuff out there, so let's just do it. That hopefully will come to fruition, just like the gay thing. It will sort itself out and do what it's supposed to do. You talked about Star Trek, and it certainly was the forerunner in challenging misconceptions. But the point I wanted to make was that Gene Roddenberry can't have been the only one with this idea of an equal society, a society where everyone's equal and everyone wants to work just because it's good for society for them to work, for them to do something with purpose. It can't just have been him, because it wouldn't have been so successful. People say to me that, oh, it's just for nerds and that I'm a nerd because I like it. The thing spanned for, 6 series, animated included, 11 movies, one of which was made in 2009. Another one's coming in 2013, supposedly. Don't know if that's actually going to work out or whether it's going to get suspended or moved on to 2014. We'll see. It can't just be nerds that like it. I think we, as Star Trek fans, would definitely know that, because it's appealing to us because of the technology, and it's appealing to other people because of the equality. So it actually fits a far wider range in society. And admittedly, it probably fitted less of society when it was initially proposed in 1961 than it does now. But somehow, I don't think it's the thing that moves things forward. It's that if an artist comes out with something that appeals to you, you're going to be more inspired to talk about that thing more inspired to act on that thing more, because you're seeing more of it. It's inspirational in that way. It gets into your subconscious that way. And when you're influencing other people, that's what spreads the idea. It's not the art or the media itself. So to say how does it shape you, you're probably talking about little ideas, but probably ones that already appeal to you but become more appealing because it's right in front of you, the entertainment, and it makes you feel positive about it and makes you more likely to do something about it. It's probably not always true. Certainly I would say that Firefly, I'm a great fan of Firefly. Taught me a few things, certainly about a character like Mal, that I wouldn't have come across a person like him, and how that's okay. And like the most inspirational part of the whole series for me was the part where the soldier dies, their friend, and he of course that whole episode is about, if you can't run, you crawl, and if you can't crawl, get someone to carry you. And I think that's inspirational because it really talks about how it's okay to trust your friends and the people around you, and to get help from other people. Probably only if you've tried hard first. And it says that without being too condescending of people that don't try hard, if you understand. It says it in a nice, kind of concise way. And I think that now I can articulate that idea better because of that phrase, but that's an ideal I already had. So it's inspirational that it makes you think about it more, and it makes you think about it differently. But yeah, you probably weren't arguing against this at all, and I could probably understand that. It's just that I wanted to make this point. I wanted it to be in a video, so I'm making the point. You talked about gods, deal with that. Tribal myths, scriptures, science fiction, they're all stories and they're all examples of popular culture and the main ideas held by society. I define that as an idea that persists, something that lasts a couple of ages, a generation or so, something that lasts a long time. Not like fashion that lasts all of 2 minutes. For example, my grandmother's dislike of profanity. We have only just managed to get her to ignore how, kind of rude it sounds for profanity to be on television, because it does sound rude to her. And the way we made her understand this is by reminding her that when she was in the working environment, it was perfectly natural to swear, curse in every other word. Certainly in the factories that she worked in. She was a seamstress, and it was big industrial kind of factories that she would have worked in, and swearing was constant. But as soon as she came home, for some reason, she still had that mentality that it was wrong. But she could do it at work, and that was fine. So all it coming onto TV is it progressing from one area of society into the next one because it's so natural. It's not a bad thing to curse and swear when you don't mean it badly. It's just a way of expressing that you're quite either angry or passionate or annoyed. Sometimes people swear when they're happy. Most of the time they swear when they just either get annoyed by it or are mad about it. Yes, it's an impulse, but things move on. Things spread into different areas of culture, I should say. And that's okay, and that people shouldn't get offended by it because it's just a progression of people's ideals. And that's what I wanted to connect to this thing with the gay marriage, because the Republicans have finally given up in making statements against it being an accepted, legal thing to do. That's the first step in it moving into getting legalized. It probably won't do in, for example, Obama's presidency, even though he's apparently now the gay president. Whatever that means. That's just a journalism quip, I think. But it's definitely the next step, and the reason that they came to this decision wasn't because Obama did it, because they don't like him at all. It's because the polls told them that people now don't care as much as they did before. There's still some, really strong, enthusiastic religious people who are absolutely against it, but the majority of people are now slowly accepting it. And whether that's through media, I'd argue it's not. It's about the way we treat each other. In our homes, in our schools, in our games, in work. It's a sense of equality that's finally spreading to all areas instead of just being, kind of something we talk about and think that we're doing, but we're actually not doing it properly. And that's what I think media allows us to do. It allows us to spread from one culture to the next by making ideals of one group normal and making them popular. That's basically all it is. You can do a lot with a well, structured and, inspiring movie, but the ideals have to be in some society for it to kick off in the first place. And that's all the point I wanted to make. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't argue against this. If you would, you're probably going to tell me so. But yeah, I just wanted to make that point because I don't think talking about what inspired you in the movies or in the science fiction is a connection to atheism, other than people now trust the scientific method as the base. That's where atheism is slowly becoming an accepted thing. Certainly is where I am from. It's accepted as normal and secular and it's just another group, and not one to be mistrusted. Trust of the scientific method has of course brought science fiction about, just as Bible scripture brings about stories about their heroes and their people who are defending God and things like that. But the original belief in God has just spread into their fiction, not fiction brought about their God. Some people justify their God with fiction, but it's a different story. We don't justify our trust in the scientific method using science fiction, so it's not. I don't think that's the right way to think about it. I think what makes us skeptics is reading stuff and knowing what's bullshit and what's not, and that's in factual information, not in fictional information. Because when it comes to fictional information, you know it's bullshit, but you just feel so happy about it, you don't care. So, yeah, it manifests in our media because of our trust in scientific method, but not. I hope that made sense, and this has ended up being a long video again, but thank you for listening, and happy science fictioning.